What's up, everybody? Welcome back to the channel. It is burn day. It is finally here, and it has been a crazy hectic morning already. I was in Nashville working. I had to go to Nashville yesterday morning to work. I was supposed to be in there working all day yesterday and all day today. Well, last night I got notified by state that they were going to try to do the burn this morning. This morning I got up early, contacted them, and they confirmed that they were going to do the burn. So at 8 a.m. I'm packing up and I have to hit the road and drive from Nashville to get back home. I just pulled in at home, ran in, grabbed the camera, Trey's videoing me. State pulled in right behind me. They're over here offloading their bulldozers and getting everything ready. I talked to them on my drive over. Unfortunately, Rural Metro, the local fire department, they backed out on sending trainees here. There's some political struggles that's going on there, and they couldn't agree on what they were going to do. So we have the state guys here going to do the burn. We got probably a crew of 6 or 7 guys here instead of having a crew of 30 plus like what was expected. So I'm going to get in here, I'm going to get some more stuff done, and then we're going to come out and try to start catching some footage of them getting things ready and set up and starting this burn.
Before they could actually start the burn, though, they had to check the weather. So they monitored the temperature, the wind speed and wind direction, and the humidity. And once they got all clear on that, then it was off to the races. And they began to burn the top of the hillside over on my uncle first. And then once that was in pretty good shape, they moved their way down into the pines. And that's when things started to really kick it up. Here you can see a deadfall pine that was laid over in the edge of the field that when the fire got to it, it just went up in big flames. You can see the smoke starting to build as the fire is working its way toward me across the pine thicket.
Well, they've got the first 6 acres or so burned. They've got the uncle's section burned so far, then they're going to move over to me, but this is looking into the pine thicket. It burned up really good. Really good. A lot of heat. Good hot burn. Well, they got the first section burned over on my aunt and uncle. They finished that up. It's calmed down. And now they have started burning over on me. I was worried that they weren't going to get to it because the wind had kind of picked up a little bit. But they got the green light to keep going. And so they have got it started and it is rolling. They actually say it's burning faster than what it was over on my uncle. So they're thinking it's going to go through a lot quicker.
All different areas of the country, and they were meeting out on Merchants Road.
Man, it is into the heaviest fuel load right now. There's a bunch of downed pine trees in there, and it is rolling. Every now and then we get a wind gust that kicks up and causes it to flare up pretty big, but thankfully the wind gusts are only one every 5, 6, 7 minutes. But it is rolling down in there. Look at that smoke. Wow, golly. That's intense. Well, wouldn't you know it, state just came up here, and I looked and they were coming up the hill in a single file line in their work trucks and the dozer behind them, and they came up here and told me they just got called out on a wildfire. So they're actually going the other direction, thankfully upwind of where I'm at, so it's not like the burn here caused anything. But they've all been dispatched to a wildfire, so they are loading up and they are heading out. So they've asked me to keep an eye on what's left. They went around the perimeter with their pump trucks and they soaked the ground and the grass all around the perimeter. Thankfully, they burned all the way through the pines and all the brush and undergrowth and blackberries and all that stuff. The grass isn't burning really. There's so much green in the grass that when the fire gets up to the grass, it kind of begins to burn the dead stuff underneath, but for the most part, it just peters out and doesn't do anything. So that's what's left. You can still see smoke kind of rising up back there behind me down in the pines. I'm just going to walk the perimeter every hour or so, look for flames. They said that, you know, just now when they left, there was nothing in the perimeter. The wind is blowing the other direction. Any of the hot spots are in the center of the burn, so the likelihood of it spreading outside of what's already been burned is very, very minimal. But I'm going to keep an eye on it. The wind is picking up at times in gusts, probably around 10 miles per hour. Still about one gust every 5 to 7 minutes. But I'm just going to do my best to keep an eye on it, and if something happens, they told me just to call them and they'll figure out something. So hopefully, praying anyway that everything stays under control. But yeah, I'm going to do a little walk around here in a minute. Well, State's been gone now for an hour and a half, and I have walked all around the perimeter twice now. I'm actually pretty worn out from walking because it's, when another tree just fell. So number one, I'm having to be careful walking because all this charred grass and everything, it's just slick. You get no traction in it. The other thing is all of the deadfall trees, the base of those trees have been burned up, and there are trees falling everywhere. In the past hour and a half, I know I've heard at least 10 trees fall. So I've got to be really careful. I'm probably not going to go down in there any farther than just walking around the perimeter. And I've got to be careful because, like back here behind me, there are there's 6 snag pine trees standing right there behind me. And I need to stay out of the way of the drop zone of any of those. So I'm having to be super cautious and super careful out here. Really, there's only one hot spot left, and it's what you see back here behind me. And that's technically, it's right back over here behind my house. So my house is right up here. It's one hot spot right back here behind us. I've walked down the perimeter, looked in. It's just a stump. There's just a stump down there that just continues to smolder. And so hopefully that's all there is, and hopefully it peters out here soon, and that's going to be it for the day. And then I can come out here and I can give you another rundown tomorrow on everything, and maybe I can go walk through the woods and the pines and give you a little bit closer of an update. But you can look back here behind me. You can see where it's charred. And then I'll give you a closer shot down on the hillside where they actually did get to burn part of the field, and it turned out fantastic. That's what I really wanted. I wanted the field to get burned down on the hillside. Unfortunately, that's what was starting to burn when they got the call. They had to spray it out so they could leave. So, is what it is, unfortunately. But I'm going to get up here. I got to get something to eat. I have not eaten all day. And here it is. It's after 6 p.m., and I have not eaten all day because I got up, jumped in the car, left Nashville, drove straight here, got here, they pulled in behind me, and I've been out here with them all day. I've had one drink all day too. I need to go get something to drink and get something to eat. So I'll catch y'all later. All right, everybody, it is the next morning. So I was exhausted last night. State Forestry had to leave to go handle those wildfires at 4 p.m. and they asked me to continually walk the perimeter of the burn to make sure that the hot spots stayed where they were at and nothing jumped the fire break. I walked the perimeter of this thing for 4 hours after they left, just nonstop walking. And the hot spots all did stay in the middle. You can see over my shoulder there's still smoke coming up. There are, at last count, there are still 3 stumps or snags of dead pines down in here that are still smoldering, and they're putting off a lot of smoke. But I've been around the perimeter again. That's it. There is nothing anywhere near the fire breaks. Everything is contained inside the center of the burn itself. So that all went well. Woke up this morning, the whole valley was full of smoke. I'm sure people are not very happy with all the smoke. My cousin from forestry told me yesterday some lady stopped and was cussing him out down on the road because of the burn. You know, as I've said before, a lot of people don't understand why you do burns. Most people see fire and think that it's awful and it's devastating. Fire is a natural thing that happens, and humans tried to suppress the fire. As people moved into areas, obviously you need to control the fire so that it doesn't destroy your structure. Well, everybody thought no fire is better than some fire. Well, that's not the case. You need to have a cleansing, purging fire. Fire purges, fire cleanses, fire purifies. You need to have that fire to clean things up and to maintain and mitigate the risk for the future burns. So on my uncle, the flames were in the canopy, in the forest, and the pine floor was around 3 feet high. So it burned basically everything up to 3 feet. On me, there was so much fuel on the ground, much of a fuel load on the floor, that the flames in most places were over 6 feet high. And in a few places, according to my cousin and others who were watching from below, the fire raced to the top of several trees down in the bottom down there, and the flames were, way up there, 30 plus feet high. And so I couldn't see that from where I was at up here, but you need that. So now that we've got all that purged, the risk of wildfires here on the farm for the next 2-3 years at least is minimized, because that fuel load is now gone. It's under control. But not only that, now we have the opportunity to allow fresh growth to come in, and the wildlife is going to benefit from that. I have not seen or heard turkeys up here at my house in months. Now, we do have them come through here in the late spring and summer because they nest up here. They haven't started nesting up here yet, thankfully. But woke up this morning, heard 3 turkeys gobbling right over here in the edge of the burn. They've already started to find it that fast. Already have deer on camera coming through checking things out. The new growth is going to start once we get rain, supposedly here in 2 days. Once that rain hits, the new growth down in the pines and along the field that was burned is going to start popping immediately. And there's going to be all kinds of wildlife coming in to partake of that new fresh growth. I'm going to go over here. I've got to go do some work stuff, and then we've got to go, and I got to run an errand real quick too. But then I will take you down in the pines and show you what it looks like down there following yesterday's burn and then the final smoldering that happened last night. So we'll be right back with you. As you can see, we are down here in the burn now, and this area here is dramatically different than what it was yesterday morning. This whole area was consumed by I'm going to call it honeysuckle. There was lots of vines, but the one that was most prominent in here was kind of a old honeysuckle. And so what it was larger, thicker vines that had like a paper outside, and they would just keep peeling and peeling and peeling. They would climb up these trees, begin to choke them out. They were all over the ground in here. They're gone. They're gone. They're all burned. And I'm looking at the trees around me. It's crazy when you look at the burn marks on these trees. Like the poplar trees back here behind me, they're on the poplar trees and the maple trees, they're only burned like 1.5, 2 feet up. These pine trees, this pine tree beside the camera, it's burned up 10, 12 feet. The pine tree behind the camera is 10, 12 feet. This one over here is probably 14, 15 feet. So there obviously was plenty of fire and heat that came through here. But I want to show you this. I was digging around here. These are wet pine needles right here. So it's not that way a lot of places. Most of the area, it's right below the burn is dirt. But there are random spots of wet pine needles and there's lots of fuel still on the floor in here. And it's where they did the burn. State really was worried that it was going to be a little too wet, but they knew that there was some kind of risk and concern with fire outbreaks in the area, and they were concerned that if they didn't do it yesterday, they would get stuck on wildfires last night and or today. And so they chose to go ahead and do it while it was early in the day before the winds picked up. And as you saw, they did get sent out on a wildfire that they had to go deal with at the end of this burn. But this is really unbelievable just looking at the dramatic difference that is down here in the pines. I still have a stump back here behind me that's burning. I've got 2 logs up here in front of me, 2 dead. That tree's fell since I was in here last, I think. I had a lot of trees falling yesterday evening and still this morning, so I'm having to make sure that where I set up to do videos, there's no dead trees around, because I don't want to be hit by one, obviously. But there's a tree up here just uphill from me, and it's got full-on blaze coming off of it. So, but it's in the center of the pines. It's not going to get out. I'm just going to let it burn and do its thing and let it burn up and turn into ash, because otherwise I'm going to have just decaying logs in here that I don't need any more of. That was kind of the purpose of the burn, was to get that stuff out of here. But dramatic difference. I'll take it here and I'll show you kind of the field areas that was burned as well. So now we're up in the field. Just where I just did the last clip is right down here, 20 yards below me. This is the little corner of the field here, where the pine thicket kind of makes a little internal curve right here. So this is kind of a little corner pocket in the edge of the pines, and they did manage to burn through here. This is really what I was wanting to see all across the hillside, but as you can see back there behind me, it's still mostly green, because that's where the fire got to when they had to put it out to go work on the wildfire. So it's easy for them to put a fire out in the field, because all I got to do is just spray it down until it dies, and then it's not going to go backwards because it's already burned everything. So they put the fire out there. It's done. It was what it is. You know, it did what it did. I would have loved to have had the whole hillside burned like that. My plan is to come behind here, and I'm going to overseed in these areas with some preferred plant seeds, basically. So different types of clover I want to get out here for the wildlife. You know, there's several different things that I'm going to look at getting, but I've got tons of clover at the house already. But I just need to get this stuff seeded, because when we get that rain coming on here on Saturday and Sunday, you've got almost immediate soil to seed contact area with the burn, which is fantastic for that. And then when we get the rain on Saturday and Sunday, we should get really rapid germination of whatever seed I put out here. And if I can get the seed that I want started out here before seeds from other areas blow in, then I should be able to get this into a really good stand of green vegetation that's beneficial for my objectives here on the farm. So one of the hot spots that's still going is right up there. That actually has burned. I mean, obviously it's burned since yesterday, burned all night and burned all day, but that had some pretty sizable flames coming off of it this morning when I came out to do my walk around and check everything out. I've been kind of watching it just to make sure. It's actually stopped burning up the log now, and it seems to be just focused on burning in that one location. As you see though, everything around it, I'll zoom out here, as you can see, everything around it is already burned, everything above it is burned. So there's virtually no risk of this one going anywhere. The wind is not supposed to pick up today, so not a whole lot of risk there. If I were to need to do something, I could just bring a 5-gallon bucket of water down here, since it's not far behind my house, and I could just pour it on it to try to quench it and get it to go out a little bit faster. But like I said, if it's going to burn up and eliminate that log from laying there for the most part, or help it to rot and break down even faster, then I'm all for letting it happen. Here's another example of what happened with the fire yesterday. So this was a little thicket area. This started off as an area where we were letting the blackberries grow up, and I was maintaining them in rows so that we could come in and pick the blackberries out of here. Well, over time, I let it get out of hand, and it got to be where it was so thick that I couldn't really even get the bush hog and the tractor through it, because it would bog the bush hog down. Look at what's left. There's nothing. There's just a few blackberry canes left in there. There's some vines that have been burned up, and then you've got several sumac trees. What do I have here? I've got winged sumac primarily on the farm here. Those are some winged sumac trees still standing in there. I'm going to come in, I'm going to take the tractor, I'm going to bush hog all this down. I'm going to saw the trees that have grown up in there down and try to get this area back under control, because it is just right behind my house here. And there is some potential uses for this area if I can get it back under control the way I want to. If you remember in the last video when I was leading up to the burn happening here and telling you about it, I gave you a shot showing how high the vines, the blackberry, multiflora rose, and everything was over my head. This is that area. And look what's left. All the honeysuckle that was on the ground, all the deadfall, all the leaves, all the dead grass, everything has been burned up. And all that's left are a few stick-ups of blackberries. Now these are actually alive blackberries. These are this year's blackberries. They will bear berries this year. So I'm trying to decide now, do I come in and bush hog all this down and try to clean it up, or Do I let these berries do their thing, leaf out, bloom, produce berries this year, and then I come in and bush hog it all down? It's a decision I've got to make. I've got to figure it out what I'm going to do. Look over here too. So look all the way down through there. I mean, I could not bush hog this. I tried to bush hog this last year and the year before, and the bush hog would just bog down in all the vines and all the multiflora and honeysuckle and everything. And now there's nothing there. I mean, there is nothing there. I could very easily mow this all off. So just to give you an example of what was here before the burn, look at this tangle of all kinds, mostly honeysuckle, blackberry, multiflora rose. There's some multiflora coming on. There's some honeysuckle, mainly honeysuckle. And you see all the dry vines down in there. That's what was here. And then you transition right over here. And now you see the burn area where all of that has been burned up. This is actually going to make maintaining this hillside so much easier. I'm going to be able to mow this more easily. Down here, I'm looking forward to seeing the grasses that come on and the abundant food source supply that we have here for the birds and the turkeys and the deer and all the other wildlife. Speaking of turkeys, while I was walking down in the pines a while ago in between video clips, I had turkeys gobbling right over here beside me. I haven't had turkeys up here. I haven't had any gobblers up here in 2 or 3 years. 24 hours after the burn, and they are already coming into the area, and they're ready to start scratching around and checking it out. Let's go.
Well, that's going to be it for this video, and it's one I definitely won't forget. But click that subscribe button if you want to follow along with us and keep up on the property following the burn.